I wrote a play called I Wish You Well. I met Ray Childers in 1978 when he was 88 years old. Ray was born in 1892, and he was a socialist. We sat and talked. The way I got to meet Ray, I was living out in the country working on my first collection of stories, and the phone rang, and this old voice said, "Do y'all get any rain over there?" And I said, "No, we didn't get no rain over here. It went over past Mount Dora and down the other canyon." He said, "Mount Dora? Is this Ray Jenkins?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Well, who am I talking to?" And I told him my name, and I got to talking to him, and I told him I had a milk cow and a good garden, and I had some buttermilk and onions and radishes and lettuce, and would he mind if I come to see him the next day? And he dropped the phone. He was so happy. And I went to see him, and over the next 7 or 8 years, he told me stories that take you all the way back to Stephenville, Texas in 1912. When Ray learned that my grandpa was a socialist, he got to telling me all about it, what socialism was. The Socialist Party was a poor man's party, he said. Eugene Debs was one of my favorite historians, you know. Kate O'Hare. We got her picture here, and we got her picture with her man and her 3 boys. Kate O'Hare was the smartest woman there ever was in this country. She was Eugene Debs' running mate. They didn't like the war. They made speeches against it. Them darn capitalists, they sent them to jail and to the penitentiary. Only Eugene, he went in with his head held high. In a few days, the warden had Debs riding around, riding over the farm, asking him this, asking him that, taking Eugene Debs' advice about many things. I heard lots of good speeches, Ray said, back in Stephenville. I heard a young lawyer, he'd bring his guitar and he'd sing, you know. He'd play and sing on his guitar, play and sing, pick on his guitar, sing Joe Hill songs. He'd sing, "It's a long way to ham and gravy, it's a long way, you know. It's a long way to ham and gravy, it's a long way, you know. It's a long way to ham and gravy, so chili will have to do." That was the song, Ray said. Joe Hill wrote a lot of socialist songs, I said. Who's that, Joe Hill? He was a wobbly. Were socialists and wobbly strong before the war, until World War I? And Ray said, "I'm going to tell you, the Chamber of Commerce and Democrat President Wilson, they didn't want people to follow us. They wanted to get rid of the socialists. They didn't want socialism in America. We want free enterprise," they said. They wanted capitalism. They got it. We have no free enterprise. What have I got to be free to do? Free if I'm able. Now, I'm going to tell you this free enterprise is worth very little to the average man. If you haven't got anything, what have you got? You're a slave to the other man. If he wants to hire you and you suit him, then he'll keep you. And if you don't, he won't. The socialists went in for the working people. They organized the unions, and the capitalists didn't like that either. They didn't like it. They didn't like that at all. I don't know which is the best country in the world, Ray said. I don't know. But I do know this country is G-O-N-E, gone. Our poor people will never have anything in the world. The average working man, he works every day, but he never gets enough ahead to make the down payment on the house. Am I right or am I wrong? You always had to agree with Ray. He was right. One last little bit from Ray, and this involves my dream. All the years that I've been writing, I've dreamed that poor people would be out in the country, on their own land again, whether it's poor Mexican workers coming in from anywhere, if it's the Nigerian farm people coming in from Africa. Give these poor people a chance to work and live and make a living on their own land like they did to my grandparents, both sides, in the late 1890s and the early 1900s. Free land. Can you imagine what a young man, 19, 20 years old, 25 years old, would do with, say, 40 acres of good river bottom land down here with irrigation? What a fine crop he'd make. What a fine family he'd raise. We've got to put our people back on the land. And that's my main vision, I think, is to see everybody old enough they can remember these little towns when people used to live out in the country and work and raise their families. And Saturday, people would come in from all over. Santa Fe was the same way. This was a country place at one time where people made their livings on the land. And I think I'm going to close with something I read today. I wrote today. It's hard to get my mind around Utah and the passing of another great poet. We lose too often these days. George Carlin, my goodness, what a poet. Bastille Day, by the way, the day that the French Revolution began its blaze assault. The people freed only 7 from King Louis's jail, but they kindled the soon raging fires of freedom. Guillotines clacked and whacked while the poor folk chopped the shrieking heads of the rich people, and the blood flowed thick and odorous and sweet over the cobblestone road. Revenge. Today, 1 in every adult Americans is in prison, jail, or on probation. Our cities are patrolled by armed marauders who man roadblocks and check to see if our papers are in order. The poor, the unemployed, and especially the so-called working class tremble with fear and anger. And the grapes of wrath are fermenting once more. People like Utah Phillips feed the fires of revolution more with laughter and love. And people like Annie DeFranco believe in the so-called common man, the common woman. And people like Cal Robertson who sing the songs of tragedy and sorrow, write the pains to save the truth of virtue in every soul. The truth of virtue in every soul, every man, every woman has virtue. Especially the homeless, the out of work, the out of luck. The ones like Kendall McCook, who grew up in the city and longed for a place of his own on the land, out there with his mother and his fathers and their brothers and sisters, where they still worked and still owned those little farms, those little ranches, the farms where people raised families and children learned love and respect. So it's a cool morning in Bernalillo this morning, the day of our Utah tribute, and let it be our tribute to the people and to Utah's dream of a peaceful revolution started and spread by fires of Obama hope. Thank you.